world you're tuning in from. We'd love to hear from you in the comments. Let's begin. I used to believe love showed itself in the quiet routines, the ordinary moments no one posts online. Morning coffee at 6:20. Her shoes by the door, always crooked. The way Vanessa hummed softly while brushing her hair, half awake, half elsewhere. For years, those details felt like proof. Proof that our marriage was steady, safe, real. Then one morning, she stopped humming. It sounds small, almost laughable now, but that silence followed everything after it. Vanessa started waking before me, leaving earlier, coming home later. The scent of her perfume changed, not stronger, different, as if it had learned someone else's skin first. She smiled more often, but those smiles didn't reach her eyes when she looked at me. I told myself not to be paranoid. That word became her favorite. Whenever I asked why her phone stayed locked now, why she stepped outside to take calls, why work dinners happened 3 times a week, she'd tilt her head slightly, like I was a child who didn't understand grown-up logic. You're reading too much into everything, Caleb. I hated how calm she sounded when she said my name, like reassurance wrapped around dismissal. Our life still looked normal from the outside. We hosted neighbors, paid bills, talked about repainting the guest room. Vanessa still kissed my cheek before bed, quick, efficient, distant. Desire didn't disappear. It relocated. She still wanted romance, just not with me. The realization didn't hit all at once. It arrived in fragments. A text notification lighting up her screen at midnight, then disappearing when she noticed my eyes open. A hotel receipt tucked into a coat pocket she swore she hadn't worn in months. A sudden interest in gym memberships she never used. When I finally asked her directly, quietly, carefully, she didn't deny anything. She laughed. Not loudly, not cruelly, just enough. If you can't trust me, she said, folding laundry like she wasn't slicing something open inside me, that's something you need to work on. That was it. No reassurance, no empathy, no explanation, just a boundary drawn with arrogance. I remember nodding, not because I agreed, but because something inside me shut down completely. I realized arguing wouldn't uncover truth. Love wouldn't protect me, and confrontation would only teach her to hide better. So I stopped pushing. Instead, I watched. I learned her new routines, the way strangers study each other in airports. Vanessa showered longer now, texted faster, claimed exhaustion while glowing with energy that didn't belong to me. She still wanted desire, still craved attention. She just outsourced it. That's when I contacted Harold Quinn, a private investigator with no flashy promises, no dramatic language, just facts. I don't need revenge, I told him. I need clarity. He studied me for a moment. Clarity changes people, he said, sometimes permanently. Vanessa had no idea. She thought my silence meant surrender. Thought she'd won. Thought I'd accepted my role as the background husband. Reliable, predictable, invisible. Meanwhile, Harold was mapping her movements with precision. Patterns emerged fast. Lunch meetings that stretched into evenings. Client presentations booked at hotels across town. And one recurring name that appeared everywhere. Miles Carter. Married. Charismatic. Financial consultant with a spotless reputation and a very public family image. The kind of man people trusted automatically. The kind who knew exactly how to smile while lying. Vanessa didn't stumble into an affair. She chose it. She scheduled it. Managed it. Protected it. Worse, she enjoyed the deception. The control. The idea that she could maintain 2 worlds without consequences. Harold showed me a photo taken outside a downtown hotel. Vanessa laughing. Miles leaning close. His hand resting comfortably at her lower back like it belonged there. I didn't feel anger. I felt clarity. Because betrayal hurts, but manipulation rewrites history. It makes you question your worth, your perception, your sanity. I wasn't going to explode. I was going to expose. Quietly. Patiently. Thoroughly. And the moment was coming sooner than Vanessa realized. Because in less than 2 weeks, her parents would be flying in. They believed marriage meant honor. They believed trust was sacred. And they believed their daughter completely. I intended to let them keep believing, right up until the truth introduced itself. Once the truth settled in, my life split cleanly down the middle. On the surface, nothing changed. I still woke up before sunrise. Still drove the same route to work. Still asked Vanessa how her day was. Still listened while she spoke about meetings and deadlines with effortless confidence. I nodded at the right moments. Smiled when expected. Played the role she assumed I'd always play. Underneath, everything had shifted. Every word she said now carried weight. Every pause felt deliberate. I wasn't guessing anymore. I was observing. And observation, I learned, is far more dangerous than suspicion. Harold worked quietly. No dramatic updates. No daily calls. Just steady progress. When he did reach out, it was always precise. Tuesday night, he told me over the phone one evening. She didn't go home after work. Went straight to a restaurant on Harbor Street. Met Miles. They stayed 2 hours. Then drove separately to a hotel. I thanked him and hung up, my hand steady, my voice calm. After that, I sat alone in my car for a long time. Engine off, street lights flickering overhead. I wasn't imagining scenarios anymore. I wasn't filling in blanks. The story was complete, and that somehow hurt more than uncertainty ever did. Vanessa came home that night smiling. She kicked off her shoes, complained about traffic, asked what I wanted for dinner. She even leaned in and kissed me, softly, quickly, like a habit she didn't want to forget entirely. "You okay?" she asked casually, sensing something she couldn't name. "Yeah," I said. "Just tired." She nodded, relieved. Tired meant safe. Tired meant predictable. Desire still existed between us, but it had changed shape. Hers felt performative now, like a reminder to herself that she still had control. Mine had turned inward, muted, heavy, restrained. I stopped initiating anything. Let her come to me when she wanted reassurance. When she did, I gave just enough to keep her comfortable. That imbalance started bothering her. I could see it in the way she studied my face when she thought I wasn't looking, in the slight edge to her voice when I didn't ask where she'd been, in the subtle frustration when my world no longer revolved around her explanations. Vanessa needed attention the way some people need oxygen, and Miles, from what Harold uncovered, fed that need generously. Miles Carter was good at his double life. He kept his public image spotless. Family photos online, charity events, friendly reputation. But behind that polished surface, he was sloppy. He reused excuses, used the same hotel twice in 1 week, paid cash too often, left patterns where there shouldn't have been any. Harold didn't just track Vanessa. He followed Miles. And what he found shifted everything. Miles wasn't just risking his marriage. He was risking his career. His consulting firm had strict ethics policies. Relationships with clients or partners weren't forbidden outright, but undisclosed conflicts could ruin him. Vanessa knew that, which meant she wasn't just cheating. She was holding leverage. That explained her confidence, her calm dismissal when I questioned her, her certainty that no one, not me, not Miles, would dare challenge her. The more I learned, the clearer her motivation became. Vanessa didn't want to leave me. Not yet. I provided stability, predictability, a home that didn't demand performance. Miles, on the other hand, gave her excitement, validation, power. She wanted both, and she assumed she could keep both. That assumption was her biggest mistake. One evening, as we sat across from each other at the kitchen table, she casually mentioned her parents' upcoming visit. "Mom's already asking what we're cooking," she said, scrolling through her phone. "She wants everything to be perfect." Her eyes flicked up to mine, gauging my reaction. "Of course she does," I said evenly. "It's been a while since they visited." Vanessa smiled, satisfied. "I think this dinner will be good for us. You know, family, connection. Connection." The word almost made me laugh. Instead, I nodded. "Yeah, it will." That night, Harold sent me something new. Not photos, not locations. Messages. Screenshots of conversations between Vanessa and Miles. Carefully recovered. Time-stamped. Clear. They talked about me openly. About how suspicious I'd been. About how she had handled it. About how Miles needed to be more careful because my husband isn't stupid. That line stayed with me. She knew I was capable. She just didn't think I'd act. The following days felt surreal. Vanessa oscillated between affection and irritation. One moment she'd bring me coffee unprompted, lean into me on the couch, ask about my day with genuine interest. The next, she'd accuse me of being distant, of pulling away, of building walls. "You don't talk anymore," she said one night, arms crossed. "It's like you're somewhere else." I looked at her then, really looked, at the woman I married. at the person who had slowly rewritten our marriage without my consent. "I'm right here," I said calmly. She didn't believe me. Miles, meanwhile, was starting to unravel. Harold intercepted frantic calls. Late-night messages filled with urgency. Miles wanted to slow things down, suggested taking a break, mentioned his wife, asking questions. Vanessa wasn't having it. She reminded him of everything she knew, everything she could expose. Their dynamic shifted from passion to pressure, and I watched it happen from a distance, like a man observing a storm he knew was heading toward shore. I didn't step in. Not yet. Because revenge wasn't about shouting truth into the open. It was about timing, about allowing people to reveal who they really were, then letting that reality speak for itself. The dinner was 5 days away. Vanessa thought it would reinforce the illusion of our perfect marriage. Her parents thought it would be warm, familiar, reassuring. Miles thought he still had time. None of them realized the truth was already sitting at the table, waiting. The day of the dinner arrived quietly, almost mockingly calm. Vanessa spent the entire morning moving through the house with an energy I hadn't seen in months. She cleaned surfaces that were already spotless, rearranged decorations no one ever noticed, practiced smiles in reflective glass when she thought she was alone. This dinner mattered to her, not because of family, but because of image. Her parents, Patricia and Leonard, arrived just before sunset. Hugs at the door, compliments about the house, polite laughter that echoed a little too loudly in the entryway. Vanessa slipped effortlessly into her role. Devoted daughter, attentive wife. She touched my arm when she spoke, laughed at my jokes, mentioned our busy schedules, like shared exhaustion was proof of unity. If anyone had walked in, they would have seen a picture-perfect marriage. But I could feel the tension humming beneath the surface. Leonard talked about work. Patricia commented on the food. The wine poured. Plates were served. Vanessa sat across from me, eyes bright, posture confident. She thought she was winning. Halfway through dinner, my phone vibrated in my pocket. One message. From Harold. He knows something's coming. He's panicking. I didn't respond. Vanessa noticed the glance, though. Her smile tightened, just a fraction. "Everything okay?" she asked sweetly. "Fine," I said. "Just work." She relaxed. That was the last moment of peace she'd have that night. As dessert was cleared, Patricia leaned back in her chair, folding her hands together. "You two seem different," she said thoughtfully. "In a good way. More settled." Vanessa squeezed my hand under the table. Her fingers were warm. "Confident." "Yes," Vanessa said quickly. "We've been working on communication. I let the silence stretch just long enough to make everyone uncomfortable." "Funny you mentioned that," I said. Vanessa's fingers stilled. Leonard glanced up. "What do you mean?" I reached for my phone, not abruptly, not theatrically, just calmly, deliberately. "I've learned that communication isn't just about talking," I continued. "It's about honesty, about what people choose to share and what they choose to hide." Vanessa's smile faltered. "Caleb," she said lightly, "this isn't really." I looked at her then, really looked. "I'm not finished." The room went quiet. I placed my phone on the table, screen facing up, and slid it toward Leonard. "Before you leave tonight," I said, my voice steady, "I think you should see something." Vanessa stood so fast her chair scraped loudly against the floor. "This is inappropriate," she snapped. "You're embarrassing yourself." I didn't raise my voice. I didn't need to. "Sit down," Patricia said sharply, her tone unfamiliar. "What is this about?" Leonard unlocked the phone. His face changed almost instantly. The first image was simple. Vanessa walking into a downtown hotel, Miles at her side. The timestamp was clear. The angle unmistakable. Then more. Different dates. Different locations. Messages. Conversations. Patricia's hand flew to her mouth. Vanessa's face drained of color. "This isn't what it looks like," she said quickly, words tumbling over each other. "You don't understand." Leonard stood up slowly. "How long?" he asked quietly. Vanessa didn't answer. Leonard's voice hardened. "How long?" Patricia looked at me, eyes glossy. "Caleb, is this true?" I nodded once. Vanessa laughed then, sharp, desperate, almost hysterical. "You hired someone to spy on me," she said. "That's sick. You invaded my privacy." I finally allowed myself to speak with emotion. "I asked for honesty," I said. "You gave me contempt." She turned toward her parents. eyes wild. He's twisting this. He's always been controlling. Enough, Leonard said, his voice cutting through the room like a blade. Vanessa froze. You stood in our home, he continued, and lied to our faces. You looked at your husband and made him doubt his own reality. Patricia was crying quietly now, staring at the table like it might collapse beneath her. Vanessa's anger shifted away from me, toward panic. She looked back at me, her voice lowering. We can talk about this later. No, I said calmly. We can't, because the truth wasn't finished. I tapped the screen once more, and before anyone thinks this was a moment of weakness, I added, there's something else. Leonard scrolled. Messages appeared. Conversations between Vanessa and Miles discussing pressure, threats, leverage. Vanessa's words stared back at her. He won't do anything. He's not brave enough. That line did it. Leonard's shoulders slumped. Patricia stood abruptly, unable to look at her daughter any longer. We're leaving, Patricia said, her voice shaking. Vanessa reached for her. Mom, please. Patricia pulled away. I raised you better than this. They didn't shout, didn't argue. They simply walked out. The door closed softly behind them. Vanessa stood frozen in the middle of the dining room, the confidence she'd carried all night collapsing into something small and brittle. You think you've won, she whispered. I looked at her, truly calm for the first time in weeks. This wasn't about winning, I said. It was about ending the lie. Her phone buzzed on the counter. Miles. She looked at it like it might explode. And suddenly, for the first time, she was afraid. The house felt enormous after the door closed. Not empty, exposed. Vanessa didn't move at first. She stood there, arms hanging at her sides, eyes fixed on the spot where her parents had disappeared. The confidence she'd worn all evening was gone, replaced by something raw and unfamiliar. Fear. Her phone buzzed again on the counter. Miles. She didn't answer. Instead, she turned toward me, her voice tight. You planned this. I nodded once. No apology. No denial. You humiliated me, she said, anger trying to crawl back into her tone. In front of my own parents. I met her gaze. You humiliated yourself. I just stopped protecting the lie. She scoffed, shaking her head. You think you're some kind of hero now. No, I said quietly. I think I'm finally being honest with myself. That's when she tried to flip the script. Vanessa straightened, crossing her arms. You know what this looks like, right? You spying on your wife. Hiring someone to follow me. Screenshots. Messages. I can make you look unstable. There was. The last weapon she had. I waited until she finished speaking before responding. Go ahead, I said calmly. But before you do, understand something. I walked to the kitchen counter and picked up a thin folder Harold had left for me earlier that day. You weren't the only one being observed, I continued. Miles was careless, and he panicked. Her eyes flicked to the folder. What is that? She asked. Everything he doesn't want exposed, I said, and everything you assumed I'd never use. I opened it just enough for her to see the contents, financial records, timelines, messages. Her face went pale. You wouldn't, she whispered. I already have, I replied. Miles' firm had been notified anonymously. So had his wife. Not with accusations, but with documentation. Facts. The kind that speak for themselves. Vanessa's phone rang again. This time, she answered. I didn't need to hear the conversation to know how it was going. Her posture collapsed. Her voice dropped. Her free hand trembled. When she hung up, she looked smaller than I'd ever seen her. He's done, she said quietly. His firm suspended him. His wife took the kids. I didn't celebrate. I didn't smile. Revenge wasn't joy. It was closure. Vanessa sank into a chair, staring at the floor. I never thought you'd do this. That was the problem, I said. You never thought of me at all. Silence stretched between us. Not the familiar one we'd lived in for months, but something final. I loved you, she said suddenly, desperation creeping into her voice. I just wanted more. I nodded slowly. Wanting more isn't the betrayal. Lying about it is. She looked up at me then, eyes wet. What happens now? I took a breath. For the first time in weeks, my chest didn't feel tight. Now, I said, we stop pretending. I had already spoken to a lawyer. Quietly, carefully. I'd learned from her mistakes. There were no dramatic threats. No raised voices. Just boundaries. Vanessa moved out 2 days later. Her parents called me the next morning. Leonard didn't excuse her behavior. Patricia apologized through tears for not seeing it sooner, for trusting appearances too easily. You didn't deserve this, she said. I thanked them and meant it. In the weeks that followed, the house felt different. Lighter. Not happier. Yet, but honest. I reclaimed routines that were actually mine. Morning runs. Late night reading. Silence that didn't ache. Vanessa tried reaching out once more. A message asking if we could talk. I didn't respond. Because closure doesn't always come from conversation. Sometimes it comes from choosing peace over explanation. I didn't destroy her life. I removed myself from her deception. And that, I realized, was the strongest move I could have made. The trust she dismissed so casually wasn't my weakness. It was her blind spot. And when it disappeared, so did the world she built on lies.